Hey, what's up? Well, we took a week off for Christmas and we are back. Dirty South podcast starring the great Grant Parsons from Cabra. Nice to have him on here.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
but anyway, first of all, Happy New Year to everybody out there. Uh, Hope everybody had a great New Year's Eve, great Christmas holiday. One thing I'd like to do before we started is just prayers go out to New Orleans and what happened there last night. So, uh, hope everybody in New Orleans is getting through this terrible situation. But moving forward, man, we had the knockout. We had a lot of stuff going on in the holidays, and now we're back. First of all, how was the holidays, guys?
You, Brent. Oh, they were great. I mean, um, no, it was good. We've our five kids all had great Christmases and got to spend time with them and minor family because most of my family came into town Thanksgiving, so I actually had time where I didn't have to run all over the place. So it was actually enjoyable.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean for me it was great. I spent a little bit of time running down to Knockout because I don't live in Central Florida.
Yes.
So
It was great
you
hanging out
know,
with you guys, by the way, at Knockout.
yeah,
Yeah, had
same,
a good time.
same.
Did you see
Um
your grandbaby?
I did, yes.
Oh, good.
I had a busy like 8 days from, well, maybe even longer than that, from the beginning of the knockout through the knockout and then through Christmas with kids visiting and grandchildren visiting and that sort of thing. And I mean, it was great. I do feel a little bad because we took video and I've only gotten two of the videos up and two of the write-ups up from the knockout, but I am working on that. And it was so good that I went back and watched the video and kind of dug into the brackets before we decided to jump on. And man, there's a lot of information. I'll tell you, if you weren't there, it's like a three-ring circus. There's
Oh
just
yeah.
so much going on. There's no way to tell like this person lost to this person early in the tournament. I mean, unless you were happened to be on that mat at that moment, you just didn't know it
Yeah,
happened. And going back and like reviewing over the brackets has kind of made me go, oh wow, that person lost early, but really they wrestled great on the backside, and I didn't even know that they wrestled great. Brant, I bet you knew that because you went through and did your
I
rankings.
did. My rankings were updated Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, both days they went live with brand new stuff. Yeah, I mean that was the thing with the knockout. I found I did not. I only got out there the second day, and there were names that I was finding in the knockout bracket that went like 0 and 2, 1 and 2. And I was like, I didn't know they were there. And I look at who they lost to, and it's like state champ from Georgia, state champ from Florida. I'm like, oh, that's quite a bracket. Yeah,
Yes.
to have your first consolation round, you're going against another state. I mean, just some of those brackets were just so
insane.
insane. And I'm like, wow, I'm looking at kids that it's always the same. I think for us anyway when we go there, especially just us Florida guys. Maybe not as much for you, Jason, but like to see kids you never see lose, or never see challenged,
Oh yeah.
and not see them make the podium. It's just it's crazy to realize that and see it in person sometimes, and then find out after the fact in others because there's so much stuff
Yeah.
going on. And
And
talk about so much stuff going on that Saturday. You had the girls finals on the big mat. You had the boys semifinals going on the one side, and then you had college wrestling on the other side. It was just about as intense and dreamy of a situation as you could get
it was insane.
somewhere in
Yeah.
And not
Florida.
only the boys, I mean, we know how deep the boys have become at the boys knockout. Um, the girls knockout was just absolutely
Yes.
insane as well. And I mean, I remember talking to a coach, and he said that, 4 years ago, he had girls that placed here, placed at states. He doesn't think those girls would even make the state tournament now, as deep as Florida has gotten. And it's insane. And some of the matches that we got to enjoy uh, on both sides was unbelievable. I mean,
In a
I know
2 day
some.
girls tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
that's
was awesome.
that just tells you right there. 2 days, and you had
Well,
state champs from out of state, and it was just incredible.
before we get into it, I mean, I think we really should give a shout out to everyone who is involved. I mean,
Yeah.
like so for me, right, you had teams from all over come in. right? The Troy Buchanan girls in Missouri, they came in and finished fourth in the girls knockout. It was really nice to see teams from out of state come in, like not just Georgia out of state. We're talking about way like out
Yeah.
of state.
California out of state.
Hillcrest, California came in from like way far away. You had the boys teams, Tuttle, Oklahoma came in, Stanton River came in on the boys side, really were competitive and that sort of thing. Still won by Camden. We'll get to that in a minute. But then the ability to pair that with four D1 college programs, and if there wasn't a starker display of levels of this sport,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. I mean, it was on full display at the knockout. Number one, you look at kids like you guys just talked about who were super good in season against kids you see they lose rarely, and they go into this and round of 32, round of 16, man, they're going up against somebody who is superb. Then and maybe take a loss. And then you watch the knockout finals on the boys' side, and you're just talking about some absolutely talented high school kids. And then I glanced to my right because I was,
You're
I
at
had
the
the
table.
microphone in my hand. I glanced to my right, and the level of competition of the freaking college guys, it was
Yeah.
crazy. It was crazy. I mean, and
Yeah,
you know what? If you were in Central Florida and you didn't come down and you love the sport and you missed that, that is a real shame because that was a great opportunity to see how good D1 college wrestling
Yep.
is.
well, shout out to Rick
Rick
Price,
Tribbett,
Rick
yeah,
Tribbett, Jim Price, and that whole team over there
absolutely.
that did a great job putting that on.
I mean, it's
Oh,
it's a group of guys and girls that have already probably started planning next year's knockout before this knockout even took place. Like they spend all year. Don Cash is another big guy behind that. They spend all year putting together that tournament and reaching out to teams across the country and inviting teams back and setting up the college thing. And it's it definitely shows, and it
Yeah.
just keeps getting big. I think Jason, because you and I talked about this off air. I think it was 6 Florida champions individually this year, if I
Yep.
remember correctly. It's probably the lowest number that I remember. Just shows you just how much talent is coming from other ways because these are the best Florida wrestlers that are there too.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, and just to echo what you just said, so I know that they start because on Monday I've been looped into kind of some of the emails that go out to coaches and everything else. It was the 23rd Monday, right after this knockout. Cash is sending out emails.
Yep.
Hey, getting ready for the 2025. But I think it's such a good event. And it's the one of the best things about the event itself is that I love all the small events throughout the year. I love the build to the state dual
Mm-hmm.
championships, the state individual championships, and all those sorts of things. Winning a state title for me is still way up there as far as everything else. But this gives you kind of a level of measuring yourself against some really elite competition. And I think that if you get that opportunity, whether you head up to Powerade, whether you head to Ironman, but now you can do so down in Central Florida, the opportunity to just kind of see where you are is such a great opportunity for these young men and women and the teams and everything else. So,
Yeah,
all
I
right.
was looking through everything too. I mean, some just as far as some kids on the boys' side
I'll say, yeah, which
uh,
which things stood out to
that
you, and then
that made a
Jason can
run for
answer.
me was I was really impressed with how well RJ Phelan wrestled to get into the final match. He wrestled really well. Um, and there was a number of kids that got to the finals and lost, but the run to the finals was unbelievable. And RJ ran into Araya Mills, right? And then I
Woo,
I went down and
woo.
and
Yeah, he's good.
The match between Malachi and Giovanni Tovar was an instant classic, and it could have went either way. Um,
Hmm.
and then the ones, let's see, where was it here? Nick Blake, who made the run to the finals, and he had a
Out
Again,
of Haggerty. Yeah.
yep, on his way. He had to go through Gavin Nolan was a tough out that he had to go through, and And he gets there, he runs into Bo Hickman of Tuttle, who's like another all-world kid, and you could see that on display. But Nick worked his ass off, and he got there. I was really proud to see that. And then Asher Bacon having to go against Nininger and make that run. But there was two big guys. Xavier Barnhart of St. John Newman had a hell of
Hmm.
a tournament. Got all the way to the
Reached the final.
finals. Yeah, in the finals, he runs into number three in the nation in Dominic Bambinelli, who's, isn't that good, right? So Dominic
I think that
Bambinelli,
was the one that my
uh,
daughter came over, said hi to us, turned around, and it was
and it
over.
was, yeah, it was tough. His
That kid's good.
Xavier's dad was standing next to me taking photos, and I said, "Look, I'm proud of him. He's in the knockout finals, but yeah, obviously Dominic Bambinelli's tough." And then the heavyweight from Palm Bay to make the run he
Hmm.
made, and the 215 from Southwest that got all the way to the finals. I mean, those are some Florida kids that I don't know if we saw that coming, and we knew
All
they were
right.
really
So
good, but
so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put some limitations on the where we're gonna go with all of this because I think we can sit here and drop names and names and
oh
names and
Yeah.
yeah,
names and
okay, I'm
names. All
sorry.
right.
So those are the
No, no, no,
finals that
no.
were impressed to me.
No, no, no. What I want you to do is, as you think about this, is five things that stood out to you, whether it was on the girls' side, the boys' side, whatever. And it can be more than five, but let's start
Okay,
it with
five
kind of a
things.
round robin, okay? And
Okay,
I'm going to start to give everybody an opportunity to kind of think about it. And the thing I'm going to start with is this, and that is Willie White and Willow White both won the knockout. Brother, sister, first time you had a brother and a sister win from South, they're from South Bay, both win the knockout. I thought that was a pretty cool thing that has not been done before. So, Brant,
I was going to say Willie White was part of one of my first things I was going to talk about, and it was his performance along with Max Brady's performance. And again, I'm Florida centric, but they beat state champs and beat them well. And I think if Digger Goalie's not a state champ, he's a state finalist, but like just dominated. And and Max went against Giovanni Solis, who's already a two-time state champ, and he's a freshman. And Brady just handled the match, won 11-1. Signed with Northern Iowa a couple days ago, so that's where he's heading. And so that's my first thing that I'm doing is not just Willie and Max winning, but the way they won in some tough weight classes.
how about you, Dan? One thing that stood out.
uh, the match between Mills and Abigail Gonzalez.
Oh,
That match
That
wow.
was good.
was
That was
maybe
interesting and good.
maybe one of the best male or female matches I've seen in a Florida tournament period,
Yeah, let's
and
unpack that real quick. Like,
it
I mean,
was
there
it was
were there
great.
were stall calls with 4 seconds left. Right, right. Wasn't
A
there a
two
stall
point
call
stall
right at
call.
the a 2 point stall call right at the end? I don't think any of us. Do you guys disagree? There was stalling happening. Do you think that? I mean, I don't want to question officials on the podcast. That's not the whole point. But
Yeah.
it felt like it felt like that.
I will just say this. I've seen
Okay,
people stall more
and
and
not get
not get
called.
that many calls. I'm not saying that she wasn't stalling or was stalling, but I've seen more that haven't
Yeah,
gotten that many. In
and
fact,
obviously people will question some of the injury
Right.
time that Abby took. I mean, she looked. I you could say what
I
you want. She
I think
looked
she was
hurt.
actually
She
hurt
looked
and
hurt because I don't think you call injury timeout
second time.
in the second time in
I don't see
No
overtime
that.
and
way.
cost yourself that. But that being said, no credit taken from these two girls. Mariah Mills has a gas tank on her that never stops coming, and she's not a girl
Yes.
that's ever going to beat herself. And if you're going to beat Mariah Mills, you're going to have to go all 6 minutes or all the way to ultimate tiebreakers. That girl just doesn't get tired. Abigail, we obviously know what kind of hammer she is. So to see this set up and see what happened there was just impressive to me. And I mean, I would sign up about 25 more times to watch those two wrestle. That would be my pleasure. I hope that they're both on top and bottom sides of brackets. going into the state tournament because that should be
Yeah.
that should be a match there. Now, look, there's a girl, Kendall Haney, that's tough as nails. It's a freshman, and she's beaten everybody not named Abigail or Mariah.
Well, and I
And
think all you have to
she's a
do is
stud.
look at that first 2 minutes from Abigail, and you saw someone who you want to beat Mariah, man, you have to do that for 6 minutes. And
And
she
that's
Right.
what,
was unbelievably
yeah.
with her shots.
Yes.
You
Abigail
get her
was
two
so
more
good.
months of fitness and ready in March, and if she can extend that deeper into the match, that's
Yeah,
gonna be something
and
to watch.
I think now that Mariah has felt Abby, and I think Abby has felt Mariah, I think they're both going to make adjustments, and I think we're going to see something good. Now, Abby's not a girl that ever plays defense. She never does. Anytime you watch her wrestle, it's constant offense. She's somebody that wants to score. She wants to score often and quickly. And Mariah is somebody that's very technically sound. She's very strong herself, but she strives on her gas tank. If she gets you to deep waters, she can really turn the tide, as we saw, and that was something special. And listen, quietly, Kiana Bush had a good tournament. I know it wasn't what she wanted in that weight class, but I think we're going to see a hell of a 110 bracket moving forward.
All right, my second thing, we can turn to the boys 120. Dan already mentioned with Tovar and Ortiz in that final. It was bonkers. Um, I actually was sitting right there at the table and looking at the scores going back and forth. They were talking about it. I understood it, how, everything was going on. I think that if you were not there at the table, you might have been really confused about kind of the scoring and everything else.
It
But
was
I'm
not
going to
explained
switch.
well to the audience, but I did sit
For
with
sure.
Sip. Sip and I watched it between finals matches on video, and he explained it, and it makes
Yeah.
complete sense.
I
So, like,
I actually
Jason, you were there,
texted.
and you're like, oh yeah, that's a yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
we've
actually
when Sip went over
texted.
it with me, then I knew what happened.
Right. I
Yeah.
actually texted Coach Mason after the tournament when I got home, and I was like, make it make sense to me, please, because it was confusing. He goes, confusing to everybody too. Even at first, Coach Basil was off, didn't understand what was going. He was like, hey, wait a second, where's that? We didn't understand what was going on. And then once we kind of locked in, I guess the
It
score
wasn't
was
signaled well or explained
right.
well in the
I think
moment.
it was supposed to be 4-1 and not 3-2. So then when he got the 3 points, blah, blah, blah,
Well,
blah, blah,
there
blah,
was a
blah.
mistake
So,
There was
at
a
the
mistake.
table.
There was a mistake on giving the escape point
right.
when he chose neutral, which you don't choose neutral, in the switching back and tiebreaker, and so that's automatically giving a point to the other person. They
But he
gave it to
had
him.
to. He
He
had
Right. He
had
he
to.
had
there
I
to.
was
understand
yeah.
it, but it was called wrong by the
Oh,
official because the
agreed.
official called neutral, and then they gave the escape point to the wrong person.
Yeah.
So that's where all the confusion came from.
So I want to
But
bring
wow,
I
what
want
a
to bring it
match. Just to
What a match!
reiterate,
I want to bring
wow.
it back to 120 though, because even though that was not my number two, and I talked about it, I still my number two is actually happened earlier in the tournament by one heck of a win for Jake Austin,
Yeah.
freshman out of Charlotte, who beat Bradley Patterson, number three ranked kid out of Camden County in the nation. And I'll tell you what, Jake was just a dog. I sat on the edge of that match. I watched it. I was super impressed. Now, Bradley came back and got third. Austin actually forfeited to him for third and fourth and that sort of thing. I think Bradley was really kind of ready for that rematch there in the consolation finals. But it just goes to show you come in as the number three in the country, you better be going because somebody could knock you off. Anyway, Brant, number two.
Yeah, I'm gonna same with you. I'm looking to semifinal match, and Rachel Silva, a Florida Christian, wins the championship. Her match with Jasmine Serrano, just as tight as they go, 1-0 finish, and
Mhm.
I mean the winner of that one was going to be the champ. I don't know how they messed that up on the brackets, but that was one of the semifinals to watch was their battle, and then great seeing Rachel go on and win the knockout title and kind of secure my number one ranking for now at 125.
Asterisk for now.
They're going to face each other again, and when when you go 1-0, then it's exciting because the next one's going to be close too.
Absolutely.
I don't want
Dan?
no knocking her, like saying, oh, she's not
Um,
going to be number one. But I just
Yeah.
those two are going to have
yeah.
another good match, I think, in our
My
future.
my number two was the run that Paola Perez made.
Hmm.
Um, Going through, the only loss she had was to the champion Haney, who's an absolute monster, by the way. It was fun to watch her wrestle. She was just incredible to watch. But
So
uh,
100 pounds, everybody. That's 100
100
pounds,
pounds,
everyone.
Paula Perez, I mean, she had to go through um, Anaya Wayne. She had to go through, who is another one. Anaya Wayne always shows up for big matches. Well, we just saw her have a great time at the Powerade. Um, But I mean, she had to wrestle Bradshaw, she had to wrestle Gonzalez, she had to wrestle Anaya, and I think it was good. We haven't seen her much. I follow her, um, so I do know the family. So I've known what she's been doing in the off season. I'm not a ranker, so it was good to have the rankers in the room to be able to witness the growth that she's had, and she made a hell of a run. I was really proud of her.
So my last one on the boys' side, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of girls' side, is that I think, and if I don't know this for sure, but I'm gonna have to go back and look at it. I think there were more tech falls, pins, or major decisions in the finals than I've ever seen before. The level of dominance
Hmm.
by some of the champions, not just in the finals, they dominated the
Yeah.
bracket. So Araya Mills out of Athens Christian, we already mentioned, right? You go down. Max Brady looked absolutely unbelievable. He beat Giovanni Solis, handily in that final. EJ Solis looked the best I've seen EJ
Yeah.
wrestle ever.
And he
But
committed to Kent State over the
yeah,
holiday too.
Yeah.
So another
Well,
another commit.
I think the word I was talking to Mr. Talon. I mean, Mr. Maple, and obviously Talon Maple has just grown so much, and he's unbelievable. And it seemed like EJ came out like, man, I'm really pissed off that my brother got beat. I need to do something here and hit the gas pedal. And it was impressive to watch. We haven't seen him jump to that level in quite a while, and that was
I
awesome.
agree with you. Yeah. So, I mean, and again, you go Hickman, Nininger, Bam Benelli, Ryder Wilder, Lander Jobber Spence. I mean, we're just talking some really, really just dominant performances. And, one of the things that was also like, take a look at the top two at the knockout at 215, your champ and your second ended up taking what, third and fifth or sixth at Powerade a week later. So, it's just really interesting. Again, the level of competition and everything else. Brant?
One that stood out to me, it's funny because it ended up being a lot of blowouts, but the early parts of the knockout reminded me of the NCAA finals, where you watch this great tournament and the finals comes up and everybody's afraid to do stuff, and they're so evenly matched. A lot of times when you have matches like that, I'm not saying that they get boring, but they could use a little bit.
Yeah, they get
132, Christian Fretwell, Lincoln Sledsley, and Nowski. 13-8, back and forth, both of them just going all out. It was
Yep.
fun. And that, and it was heated because it was fun, but like you had two great wrestlers who probably evenly matched that didn't sit around and wait, and they went after it, and it made for a fun final. No matter who wins it, it was just fun to watch that one.
I agree. Dan?
Uh, Tristan Saines run to third. I mean, his only loss was to Tuttle's Hickman, we know how good he is. It was good to see Tristan Saines off the jiu-jitsu match and back on the wrestling mat. And he was a young man that his run to third was pretty impressive. He had some big wins, and um, it was good to see him back and wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. All right. So mine on the girls' side are the rematches that we saw. So, we already talked, we didn't, well, I don't think Bills and Gonzalez is a rematch, but Jocelyn Johnson, Camden Elliott, rematch. Probably going to see
Rematch
them
of a rematch
again.
of a rematch.
Yeah, probably going to see them
Yeah.
again. Although I'll tell you what, Rizzuto looked tough against Jocelyn in that
Rizzuto
semifinal.
had that match won, and I think didn't realize. I watched it, didn't realize that they had given a point to Jocelyn at the end to tie it up. I don't. It was a penalty point or something, and celebrated, thinking she had won, and then had to go back out for the
Oof.
sudden victory, and Jocelyn just ate her up in the OT. But she battled tough. She gave Jocelyn everything, and then
Well, and
I
that
mean, she's been sitting there all year. She's third at Flagler, third at Let Freedom Ring. I mean, she's right behind them, and she showed at knockout that she's actually right there, ready to be part of the discussion.
and then the other rematch, I think that was Claremont versus Cruz,
Yes, they've
where
battled 3 times now.
they've now battled 3 times. This is the third, and Claremont's now won twice, right?
Yes.
So again, you get to see these matchups that are potential state finals matchups, and you're watching this person win it this time, this person win it this time, and we're going back and forth. It's really going to be interesting to see how it plays out, in the next few months. All right, Brant.
All right, so we got 2 left. One of mine was actually going to be Claremont and Freedom, but I'm going to build off that. Freedom's other wrestler at 235, I think, was third or fourth in this.
Third.
Third. And then they have another one, a freshman in the room, who pushes it, and talking to her after talking to Rochiva Claremont after her win, and just about that room and just how much they push each other. Now, I know there's some work being done. Hopefully they can spread some of their girls out, because they are loaded at a couple weights, and if Freedom can do that, they become, we'll discuss like the team portion of later on in the state, but having 2 girls in the top 3 at the knockout at that weight class and another one in the room, that that room is insane right now for 235. And so there's no wonder the Claremont is out there shocking some people by beating Cheyenne twice, because she's getting pushed every single day by someone who's almost just as good, and someone who took down Cheyenne Cruz at Flagler in the first weekend and had her almost pinned for 2 minutes, and Cheyenne made it through it and won later in that match. But talented Freedom girls at 235.
Yeah, I agree. Dan?
I was trying to pull this up because I watched a young man get sixth place and I followed his matches. Um, I'm trying to find him here so I can tell you what he went through to get to sixth. It was pretty intense. Um, anyway, I can't find. I'm trying to look real quick, but Rocco Ruiz's run to sixth place was just pure insanity. If you were watching this kid's
Yeah,
bracket,
he was getting hammered at one point in time. I remember that.
yeah, I mean
Wasn't he
he
losing to the Tennessee state champ, and it comes back and pins him?
comes back and pins him. Yeah, so he's got. I mean, and you know these kids better than Brant and I because obviously I'm learning by doing these shows with you. And but he had to. So round one was his easiest match because he got a bye. But round two, he had Preston Neifeld, who was a state champ in Washington. Then he had Cohen Hargrove from Social Circle.
State champ in Georgia,
Then he had Samuel Combs from Lakeway Christian.
state champion in Tennessee,
Then he had to go against some kid named Giovanni Tovar.
State
never heard of
champion in
it.
Florida.
Yep.
Hey, I gotta when I know the info, I want to
Yeah.
add it.
Boom.
Then he had to wrestle Bradley Patterson,
Number 3 in the
number 3 in the
country.
country. Then he had to wrestle in the fifth place match Axel Ritchie, state placer, I think
State
third
placer, not
state placer.
so Axel's really interesting in that he's now, I think, a 2-time knockout state or knockout placer, but he's also the same in the state of Tennessee as far as a placer goes. He hasn't broken through. He's one of the few that are in the
Yeah.
bracket who didn't win a state title last year,
So
but placed in the knockout.
tell me a kid at the knockout, boy or girl, that had to go through all his matches being state champs except for one.
Yeah.
So for him to take sixth, I think his confidence is up coming out of that. Um, a freshman now, and I think being in the state, was he in the state finals last year? I think the state finals last year, right?
Yeah, he lost in the
Yeah,
finals.
yeah. So, yeah, his his run was just was just brutal. And I remember seeing him and talking to his mom and dad, and obviously they were very impressed with his results. He wrestled Tovar tough.
He
He
did.
wrestled
Yeah.
everybody as tough as he could. But yeah, that kid, I just remember watching him go from match to match, thinking, "Oh shit, here we go again," and it was insane.
All right,
Yeah.
my last one. I'm because you guys can focus in on Florida. I'm going to take it outside the state of Florida. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
tip of the cap to many of the girls outside the state of Florida. Troy Buchanan had a champion. Hillcrest had a placer for California. Seaforth out of North Carolina brought one girl down. She placed. Camden County's Brianna Higgins, state runner-up in the state of Georgia, lost to Haney in the finals at 100 pounds. So she was also on the podium. But the one school was Enterprise out of Alabama. They brought four girls, right? Two were champions. I think two were champions. Wasn't Mackenzie Schultz a champion?
I
Yes,
know
she was a
Mallory
champion.
Ladd, right?
I know
Mallory Ladd,
Mallory Ladd was a
190.
champion, but I wasn't sure about Mackenzie Schultz. Two were champions. Evelyn Holmes Smith, who's ranked number 18 in the country, lost in the finals. And the person who blew up the bracket, actually, what happened, Brant, you're like, I don't understand how this bracket got built. But at 125, Tamaine Benamarito, who won state titles in the state of Hawaii,
Ah,
who is now 89-0 in the state of Alabama with two state titles in the state of Alabama, right? Was your number one seed. And she got Kyla Rodriguez from Osceola in the first round. And Kyla surprised her. And the next thing you know, blew up the bracket. And that's kind of
okay.
what happened. And she didn't end up placing,
Yeah.
yet I think she has a collection of 3 state titles to her name. So anyway, Enterprise, tip of the cap. I thought it was a really good run by them.
Last one for me, again, Florida focus, but Grace Lashinsky from Deland. I know I've talked about her on here
Mm-hmm.
before. State finalist last year. Talked to her coach before the final. Talked to her after. They came to knockout for one reason. They wanted to wrestle Beyonce Espinosa of South Dade. It's the only girl she hasn't faced. They said if she wasn't there, they wouldn't have come. But she got her in the final. Had a chance to test herself against her and won 3-1. Got the takedown to make the difference, and just has been one of those wrestlers I've just enjoyed watching. It's almost like the finals appearance, kickstarted something crazy. But she's on top of her game, and I love those stories. Like, hey, we only came here for this. They got it and got the win.
Yeah, a great match, and Beyonce was. Uh, I have to change my direction because that was the one I was going to talk about.
And while you're changing
So,
direction, I'll give
so
South
good
Dade
job.
girls a shout out because the South Dade girls team has been. I mean, they won the Elite Eight duels last year. They've been able to have 14 girls, and they're now have girls that are touching those elite levels in the state and battling for in the finals. And so South Dade girls actually took like another step this weekend or that weekend,
Well,
I guess whenever
they
it was.
led for much of the
They
tournament.
did. I mean, but this is a team that has had depth, but in those moments they haven't been able to get the results. But now they're getting those results, and it was impressive to see them across the board. So I'll give them credit for that, while also taking one of my 5 points as one of their girls losing in the finals.
Dan, do you have
Yeah,
one?
yeah, I'll go to Kendall Haney at 110. I mean, she had to wrestle um,
Mm-hmm.
Choka Kwans. She had to wrestle Bush and she had to wrestle Mills on her way to take third place. And uh, doesn't find me three tougher girls in that bracket that she had to go through. Those are three of the toughest, and she did her thing. A really good match there with Bush to take third. Obviously could have gone either way. We saw that last scramble at the end. She was able to pull it out, and good for her. I was glad to see Bush on the mat at 110. Also, just a quick side note, because I know she made the switch and she's in a new room and she's learning that culture. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think now she knows what she has to do to get better. So I think both sides of that coin. So Haney slash Bush.
So so the question on the girls' side as far as the teams go, like we saw Flagler, we expected what we got from Flagler, even in a tough tournament, multiple champs, right? All these sorts of things. Some could have gone one way or the other, or whatever. Brant mentioned Freedom still kind of working out the where people are going to fit into spots, but you know what? They're working that out and they're getting there. Um, Hernando missing Grace Leota, right, was a big deal. They took third behind South Dade. One of the things that stood out to me was that Florida, both on the boys' side and the girls' side, you can tell they started 2 weeks later than some of the other states.
Yeah.
Conditioning wise or whatever the case is, you can tell 2 weeks. Some of the schools have 2 more weeks of wrestling, and it makes a difference. South Dade on the boys' side, the South Dade team that competed last year at the knockout was not the South Dade team that competed last year at the state championship in March. And this evolution from December to March is going to be huge for some of these teams. Was there a team on either the boys or girls side that you saw in the state of Florida? And I'll take the outside of the state of Florida thing, but inside the state of Florida that you think is going to kind of take this and move for the next 3 months?
I mean, on the girls' side, I touched upon it. I think South Dade girls team showed me that they're going to have girls on the podium and competing at the top. As far as the girls' race, just to address the first point, Flagler, I think, is a strong favorite, as strong as a favorite to win a team title, because when you have more depth, maybe at Hernando, you have more depth at Freedom, you have more depth, maybe even Osceola. But when you throw in the whole state, the Flagler girls are still the top girls in their weight class, or they're
Yeah.
1, 2. And I think, and my computations based on my rankings has them significantly winning a tournament with every top girl in the
Yeah.
state.
And,
At
David
a
Bush
tournament,
said,
you're gonna see a Hernando, you're gonna see a Freedom, be able to stay tight with them through the semis, maybe through
yeah,
the finals, as you saw this weekend. But as the tournament gets deeper with girls across the state, because there's so many schools that have like 1 or 2 girls who are going to be in the finals, that they're not going to
right.
compete on like an IBT
Yeah.
team contest. But Flagler is going to have those girls in those finals, and we've seen them time and time again win those kind of matches.
Right. And that's what David Bush said. He said, we're coming. We're slowly building here. We've got some moves to make, but it's going to be really tough when you have somebody like that has so many guaranteed points, right? He goes, they have some girls that are just guaranteed to beat, and it's tough to compete with that point wise when you're in a big tournament like that. So, um,
Christina Borgman.
Oh,
That's one of your guaranteed
that's a
points,
guarantee.
man.
That's a
She
oh
was
guaranteed.
man,
Yeah,
crazy good.
wow,
she's
Yeah.
so
she's
good that
a,
I didn't even list her on my things to watch because it was just so expected.
she's got muscles. She's got big muscles.
All right, so let's flip it over to the boys' side, and I'm gonna begin, and then I'm gonna throw something to Dan and let him respond, and then Brand, I'll let you wrap it up, okay? And that is, Camden County obviously won. Man, I'll tell you what, that is an impressive program, top to bottom. They had one champ in Ryder Wilder, but man, they put a lot on the podium. They looked really, really good
One finalist in the team race was over midday Saturday, like before we even got
because
close to the finals.
they get it done, man.
Yeah.
They get it done on that backside. Tuttle wrestled really, really well. Came all the way from Oklahoma, but I mean, they finished almost 100 points behind Camden. You had South Dade in third, but I'm going to throw it out there, man. For the first day, Zephyr Hills Christian, man, that was. I mean, they were moving. They looked great, unbelievable. Put team effort by Coach Maple's team. Dan, we were kind of joking back and forth about Zephyr Hills Christian, and could they win the whole thing? You know what I mean? We were talking
Yeah,
about it.
I mean, they just impressive, and it seems like Coach Maple every year he has that team ready to go. Um, we're going to see. I believe here in a couple weeks there's going to be a duel with Zephyr Hills and Lake Gibson,
Yep.
and
That's at the end of the year,
is
February 5th, I think. It's
Is it
well
February?
after
Okay,
the
so it's about a
After the
month.
state,
well
after
after the
state
state
duels.
series.
Yeah, so we're going to get to see a glimpse of what that looks
We're
like.
gonna get
But
to see a glimpse of what they look like when they go against Mater Lakes at state duels in January. That's gonna be a good one.
that's going to be a crazy. I mean, and yeah, because Mater Lakes is quietly still there. They only brought 12
Absolutely.
kids. I think nothing against everybody else, but four of their best kids were homesick. Um, and that, they would have scored points. The kids that were homesick would have scored some points.
Yeah.
But I
But
don't know.
to be fair to everybody else,
Every
there were a lot of teams who
There are
were
a lot of
missing a
teams
kid
missing
here or
folks.
a kid there,
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
but
So
but no, Coach Maple is doing a fantastic job there, and I agree with you. I think that's somebody that people in 1A are talking about Mater Lakes a lot. Love Mater Lakes. Maple is doing his thing over there, and like you said, when we get to see that duel at state duels, it's going to be pretty darn cool.
Brant, are they going to be on the same side or will we get that as a final if they
They
get
will
there?
be in the semis because they're in 2 and 4, I believe.
Ugh. Ugh.
Because Zephyr Hills Christian, which let me just verify this. Yes, they moved up. They moved from Region 3 to Region 2.
Yeah.
And then we have 1-3 and 2-4. So that will be a Saturday morning duel that you won't want to miss,
Assuming they're both
assuming
there,
everything
but
plays
yeah.
out and everyone stays healthy. That was one of the teams that stuck out to me as far as their performance. I have them number 1 in Cabo wrestling rankings, and Mater Lakes is right behind them in 2, and nothing changes there.
And you can
Zephyr
go
Hills,
to cabra.com to sign up
CabraWrestling.com.
for those
Thanks.
rankings.
CabraWrestling.com.
CabraWrestling.com.
But but what I've noticed in reviewing them, Mater Lakes may have some champions, more champions than them, but I could see Zephyr Hills Christian having 13 state placers this year, and they have talent at all 14 weight classes right now. They have ranked wrestlers at all 14 weight classes right now at Cabo Wrestling, and they are starting to mold into shape. And as you talked about, Coach Mabel, I mean, he's been to the duels with them, and they've gotten that experience. And Mater Lakes hasn't been to the show there, and because of Somerset, or they weren't last year. That's going to be interesting when they get a chance to meet. And the other one that stood out was Tampa Jesuit. I think kind of settled themselves as my pretty strong favorite as a 2A
They look
IBT
good.
team right now.
They looked really good. You know who was I was glad we finally got to see them is St. John Newman.
Yeah.
I think because we're so used to seeing those Palmetto Ridge kids, right? And they're all with ice in there. He had 2 kids in the finals. Um, and I think we're going to see them wrestle again this weekend at the Braves Invitational. And he's building something up there too. And I wouldn't be surprised if he shakes the cage a little bit at the state tournament.
He'll shake it a
All
little
right.
bit, but I don't think they have the depth yet.
All right, let's put a bow on the
Yes.
knockout. First, it was a fantastic tournament, and but there has been some other events, like national level events. I
Sure.
don't, so in Alabama, I know the Heart of Dixie. We've got different things happening in different places, but I'm in one again. This sounds like a broken record, but I can't tell you how good Lake Highland Prep has looked.
Wow. Yep.
At the Powerade, Maya Alvarado, I think she won on the girls' side for them. I think what LHP had 3 champs. CJ Torres wasn't one of
missing
the
a hammer
3.
because
He
Yeah.
he
wasn't
didn't
there.
wrestle,
Yeah, CJ.
Yeah,
And
he
that,
wasn't one of the 3, and
and they
so
lost by
and
like a handful of points
yeah.
in
So
the team
if
race.
he's
So that
there, if he's there, they may win it. But yeah, first of all, I can't say enough about the growth of Jace Paradigm. I know we're talking about a state champion here, that he was a state champion, but to go from where he was when he made that transition to Lake Highland Prep to now, I think the rankings came out and he was 5 in the country.
Matt Scouts
The,
has him 5. Yeah,
the
in
run
their
that he
latest.
made at Powerade was awesome. He made a good run at Beach Thieves. The growth of him has been incredible. And shout out to him who won it and the other kids that won it and all the placers and just the whole Lake Island prep team. Back-to-back second places, finishes in two of the biggest tournaments in season that we see. And obviously the growth of Maya Alvarado was tremendous to watch. We had other girls there. The Osceola girls made a great run
Right,
there. They
right.
had a hell of a showing. Um, one girl this weekend that stuck out to me was Borelli from Venice. She went out to a college tournament up at the Midlands, and she came in fourth as a high school girl. Um, shout out to her. So yeah, we had a lot of kids, Florida kids all over the place, and you
Well,
know,
one of the things that I wanted to say about the Lake Highland Prep crew is that, you've now seen it at Ironman in different places. Jacob Levy has obviously been a big addition for them.
Yeah.
You got Jace Paradon, who's wrestling absolutely unbelievably good and that sort of thing. But Robert Kucharczyk, I don't know how to say his name. He won. I
Hmm.
mean, at what, 189? That's the weight class that was at Powerade. I
Right.
don't know. Anyway. Zeno Moore making the finals, Lucas Spo placing, Alex Smith placing. I mean, it's not just the hammers at LHP who are getting it done
no,
for them. They're putting them in position to really make a run against McCourt and all of them. So,
yeah, and Zeno Moore coming
pretty
in
cool.
second.
Yeah,
Zeno
I
Moore
mean,
in
it
the
was
finals.
pretty cool.
We also had a kid out there, some kid named Sebastian De Janeiro was on the
Yep.
podium out
He made the
there.
podium there.
So that was great. Yeah. So on the boys and girls side of the Powerade, it was we had some luck. Just I know we're probably going to wrap this up here in a minute, but
We are. Yeah.
um, we saw a lot of Florida kids that are now in college, and I may miss some names here. I tried to keep them all. I tried to keep an eye, and I'm sure I'm missing names. So no hate mail, please. But I mean, we watched. The Soldier Salute had Jonathan Lay. I believe Dan Williams was there. Sawyer Bartelt was wrestling there. Val Solario took fourth there. Over at the Midlands, Johnny Lovett, Danny Martinez, the two Rivera brothers, Hayden Witt and Malik Hines, and so many others. And the girls' side at Midlands with the Florida girls that were wrestling there that we saw competing at the Midlands. We're starting to see our Florida kids, and I know that I'm becoming like dirty south of you too. There was a lot of Southeast kids at the Midlands also that were competing really nicely. Unfortunately, Georgia did. I guess Georgia has some sort of rule that doesn't allow those kids to go out to those other big
Powerade.
tournaments. Powerade and Beast of the East. It would have been nice to see some of those top kids that they have in those states to be able to compete there. But as far as my home is Florida, and seeing all of our kids on the national level competing was really fun this week, and it's kind of cool to watch.
So for me, as we wrap this up, I mean, I don't know about the others. I don't know about Florida. I think Florida is pretty much what I'm going to say is true about Florida as well. There are going to be some good tournaments coming up, right? They're individual tournaments. The shift, though, once we hit New Year's Day, is really to the next 3 weeks and making a run to a dual state title. Not to take away from the IBTs, you're still wrestling a lot of those and everything else. But man, the next 3 weeks and looking at the duels, Brant, I believe that there was we got more teams into the Florida State tournament now
Yeah.
after a weekend of wrestling again, right?
Yeah. You had actually the day of the knockout, Clay won their district. Ponte Vedra was second. Fleming was a no-show. 1A2,
Fleming was a no-show.
they were a no-show at the district duels. 1A2, Sewanee and Wakula. Florida High was also in that. Three tough battles there. Sewanee wrestling really well as a dual team, by the way. And then 3A, Venice and Palmetto both made it across. We've got two this weekend, 2A4 at Winter Springs, 2A8 at Lyman, and then next week I'm looking at my calendar and it's heavy. But I will say I wanted to take a chance. This weekend's IBT heavy in Florida, and you have the Braves Invitational that's at the Advent Health Complex in Winter Haven. 14 mats, 53 teams in that one. I counted 7 top 10 teams. But the main one in Florida still this week is Cradle Cancer at Jensen Beach. 39 teams there, 13 teams ranked in the top 8 across 1A, 2A, and 3A, and also a guy that if you have a chance to go watch him, PJ Duke. He's a Penn State commit. He's actually signed his national letter of intent November 14th. He's at Minnesink Valley. They were there last year at
Yeah.
Cradle. I assume he'll be there this weekend. He wrestles at 170 in New York, so I don't know what he'll be wrestling this weekend at Jensen Beach. But if he comes along, you definitely want to go see him. He was there last year, and just a treat to watch him wrestle. But Mater Lakes, Merritt Island, get a chance to see them. Cocoa Beach, 2A, Jesuit and Charlotte are there. 3A, Southwest Miami, Flagler, Osceola. I mean, tons of teams. So it's one more IBT weekend, and then next week we hit the district duels, and then everything's gonna be focused on that state run towards the end of January.
Yeah,
So
that's
if you
great.
guys haven't, if you guys haven't watched PJ Duke wrestle, he is
Oh, he's
probably
amazing.
the best high school wrestler in the country.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yes.
So you think they'll give him a bye right to the finals?
He wrestled it last year. I can't remember who it was in the finals. It was the top guy in
Listen,
the final, like top
also
four
a
guy. And
tournament, the
he's a
35th.
treat to watch. Check him out. It was.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got out to Jensen Beach last year to see that.
Yeah, he's I watched him in very high level wrestling this summer. I was blessed to be able to be at many things that he was competing at. And yeah, you're not lying. He's fun to watch. Listen, you also have let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
Dan
20,
demonstrating he
21.
can count to 21.
The Tournament of Champions, the 35th Tournament of Champions has
Yeah.
21 teams there. And
Lake Highland Prep will be there. Last year they
Lake
did
Highland-
have a few starters there, so interesting
Yep.
to see who they send there. I don't
Lake
have a
Highland Prep will
schedule
be
from
there.
them, so I don't know if they're going somewhere else too. But yeah, there's a lot of local, not local, regional ones. Clay Rotaries this weekend, Palm Beach
Yep.
Gardens is this weekend, Somerset Scuffles this weekend, Panhandle
Yep.
Championships is this
And
weekend.
the calendar has just made everything overlap this year. And,
Yes, everything's crazy.
Yeah, because I mean, imagine what Braves Invite and or Cradle of Cancer would be on separate weekends. They'd each get probably 60 teams. I mean, it's just if they were on separate weekends, they'd both be as big as they usually are, right? So incredible. Well, I appreciate you guys.
Happy
It was
New Year,
great
guys.
seeing you guys at the knockout, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Oh, hey, just to let everybody know, I started a Substack, so go look at it and doing a little bit of writing over there. And yeah, I'm starting to post the finals for the some of the finals from the knockout, which Jaden, what is Jaden's last name, Dan? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay. Jaden, a student at Osceola, helped me film the finals for the knockout. So we got most of them. I'm working on putting them together. Look for them to be posted soon. And I'll tell you what, one of the ones that's already posted, Mills versus Gonzalez. Woo!
Check it out.
Check it out.
Yeah, what a match! If you guys can watch it and do it. All right,
Peace out,
see you guys
guys.
later.
Bye.
Happy New Year.